Hey, welcome back to Totally Rad Guitars. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Kramer Focus series. I have here a 1983 Kramer Focus 2000. The Kramer Focus series ran from 83 at introduction up to about 87, where they changed branding, and the 87 and later models are usually called the F series or the 1000 series in Kramer literature, but a lot of people still just call them Focus or Foci. When they were first introduced, it basically was sort of a budget alternative to the American series Kramers. You have the this one in 83. They're made in Japan, usually at the same factories a lot of American parts were being made at. So the quality is very, very high. You had Floyd Rose bridges. The very early ones a lot of times had the non-fine tuner Floyd Rose. This one's from a little bit later in 83 or maybe even early 84, so it just has a regular standard Floyd Rose. And some very early, there are a couple of sort of rare Focus guitars out there. There's a slightly different looking body shape I'll put a picture up for. Those were made in the Matsumoku factory, hope I pronounced that right, as opposed to ESP, so those are a little bit different and unique, but they still share kind of the same major bullet points. So on this one you've got the Floyd Rose, like I said, and you kind of have these unbranded, but they're made by Goto tuners that are very nice quality, and then some, kind of generic OEM pickups, no Seymour Duncans or anything like that on these, but they still sound really, really good. And this one, being the 2000, is kind of the equivalent to the Pacer Imperial at the time, where you've got the two humbuckers, but instead of volume tone or volume tone, there's just two controls, volume and tone, and then the little three-way switch. And the three-way switch does feel a little bit cheaper than the American ones. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, or if we're just looking at a guitar 40 years in the future now, and who knows what this has been through. So maybe somebody else just really abused this switch and made it feel cheaper. But the neck on this guitar was actually made by ESP, so it's very, very similar feeling to my USA Beak Headstock Pacers. I actually think if you refinish this headstock, I don't know if anyone would be able to tell the difference between this and American neck. So bang for buck wise, the Focus series is really, really good. You basically get, other than the pickups, an equivalent playing guitar to an American series Pacer at probably half the cost or two-thirds the cost, something like that. So this is, like I said, this is the 2000, but there's also 1000, and then 3000, 4000, 5000, 6000, 7000, 8000, and all of those have slightly different features. The 1000 series has a single humbucker, and it was kind of like the Pacer Special or later the Beretta model guitars. The 3000 is like a Pacer Deluxe. It's humbucker single with a pickguard. The 4000 is a V, kind of like the Vanguard, and the 5000 is like a Voyager, but usually the 5000 series Focuses that I've seen are the pointy style, which was the later body style for the Voyager, which you don't see too many of, so that's a really unique kind of special guitar. The 6000 has the large body soloist type with the really sort of sharp radius edges and a lot bigger, kind of pointier body shape. And those guitars are kind of the equivalent to the Pacer Custom 1 and Custom 2s. I've seen Focus 6000s with, it's always humbucker single, and the humbucker is always tilted, which is one way that you can tell the Focus bodies apart. But the 6000s, I've seen them have the Pacer Custom 1 control scheme, which is one volume control and then 4 mini toggle switches. But I've also seen them with the Custom 2 control scheme, which is volume, tone, and a 5-way blade switch. And those, the only way you can tell that body apart really from the American series Custom 2 is that the humbucker is tilted. So that's kind of your giveaway there. And I think you can kind of tell from the cavity shapes as well, but that would require a little bit of research, I think, to make sure that you're not, just know what you're getting, that's all. And that's the case with any kind of vintage guitar collecting, is you want to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. There's nothing wrong with a Focus or a Focus body, but don't pay an American series price for it. Even if playability wise it's basically the same. Hey, this is Brett from the editing room now, and I wanted to elaborate more on some of the differences and common pitfalls that confuse people when looking at Focus versus American series guitars. The first giveaway on a Focus body is the jack plate. American guitars did not have jack plates. Instead, they had the Canon-style input jack as pictured. This helps separate Focus bodies from American bodies really easily, except for the 3000 series, because those have pick guards and a Strat-style input jack on the top. In order to tell the difference between those, the easiest way is to look at the lower horn where the neck meets the body. Focus bodies have a sharper angle, while American bodies have a piece of wood that curves towards the neck pocket a bit further up. It's a smoother transition. Here's two side by side so you can see what I mean. Now this rule of thumb gets a little muddy though. Some American guitars in the late C to D plate era, made by Sports or other suppliers, had the same sharp angle just like a Focus body. Usually you can tell those apart because the neck hole spacing on the back is slightly closer together, because C and D serial number plates have a smaller screw spacing from Focus guitars in the same year. And the next special note is that extremely late F series guitars, I'm talking 89 or 90, right before Kramer went out of business, also had the American style joint with the smoother transition. I'm speculating now, but I think at this point Kramer was in a lot of trouble and ESP was probably just making one body shape for both American and F-series guitars at this point. Not many of those are around though, but I have one I can put side by side with an American pacer for comparison. Okay, one last thing, because I'm already using a bunch of confusing terms. When I say F-series, it's because from late 1987 on, they weren't called Focus anymore. On the headstock, they'd have a truss rod cover that said something like F3000. Technically, this is the 1000 series according to official catalogs, but the common vernacular in Kramer collecting circles sometimes, we call them F-series as in F1000, F2000, F3000, and so on. 1000 series just doesn't roll off the tongue. The reason for that explanation is because at the same time, American guitar serial numbers were starting to begin with the letter F. So to be clear, when someone says F-series, they generally mean Focus, but they could also mean F serial number plates for late era American guitars. I know that's a pain, but the context is key to understanding what they actually mean, which also means if you're buying something or collecting something, don't be afraid to ask for clarification before you blow a bunch of cash. I keep adding on to this. Most of the late model 1000 series guitars, formerly known as Focus series, had serial number plates exactly like American plates that even say Neptune, New Jersey on the back, but they're 5 digits and start with the letter B. These plates are more common, and a plate like that starting with B is always a Japanese model plate. When you hear someone refer to a B serial number in terms of American guitars, they're talking about plates like this one, which have a totally different appearance and a thinner screw spacing. Okay, sorry for the intermission. I just wanted to make sure this was helpful and clear to people who are collecting. So these early ones, they say on the headstock, Focus 2000 by Kramer. So it actually says the model name on the headstock. A lot of later ones don't say that. And there's a couple of different headstock variations too. They started with a beak shape like this, just like the American ones. And then they kind of transitioned to a non-tilt banana shape, but thinner at the end. There is a Focus 1000 that you could get with the sort of droopy, I hate to use the term, but grail shaped headstock that matched, sort of EVH Beretta look, but those aren't too common. But like this kind of skinnier, rounded banana headstock was available, and then after that they transitioned around the same time that the American series went to the pointy headstock. They did the same thing with the Focus series. In 86 and 87, they did a pointy headstock, but it was not tilted. So you can look and see a non-tilt headstock with a pointy tip is pretty much always a focus headstock. There were some Japanese market models that have trickled back and forth that had that same headstock shape as well, but usually those stand out in some way in the body. And then the time in 87 to 88 when it became the F series or the 1000 series, that's when the headstock was painted black, pointy, tilt back, exactly like the American series necks. Kind of return to form there. And those are really, really nice necks. I have a reverse headstock one actually on another guitar, and it's one of my favorite necks. As far as I know, other than the very, very early Matsumoto Focus guitars, they're all made by ESP in Japan, which means ESP necks, ESP bodies. They're never plywood, it's always some kind of solid wood. But sometimes you see weird stuff like ash or alder or poplar or maple even. Alright, so I'm just going to play it now and you can see how it sounds. I'm using a PVE 6505 through a cabinet here loaded with vintage 30s, mic'd with an SM57, all pretty standard stuff. Bridge pickup. Thanks for watching and see you next time.